All right. I forgot to listen to that one to see if it started right away at 1 second. All right. Anticipation Part 2. John looked at the clock on the desk, then walked over and turned on the radio. Classical music filled the room for a few minutes and gave way to the news. After a moment's introduction, they began. The weather heading into the Thanksgiving holiday is predicted to warm steadily through the weekend. Today's high will be 30 degrees. Tonight's low will be 18 degrees. The severe freeze warning of the last 3 days continues. Predicted highs for Thursday, or Thanksgiving, is 38 degrees and 44 degrees for Friday. Skies will remain cloudless with no chance of precipitation for today and Thanksgiving. The ultraviolet warning remains in effect, and all persons outside are reminded to wear long sleeves, broad-brimmed hats, or use a sunscreen of at least SPF 15 or higher. In local news, Gainesville Regional Utilities reports a steadily improving flow of coal deliveries to its Deer Haven plant, which will enable them to create the daily electricity ration to 12 hours a day, increase the daily electricity ration to 12 hours a day for most areas. A spokesman for the utility stated that if deliveries continue to increase at their present rate, that 24-hour electricity availability should arrive by Christmas. Utility authorities remind all consumers that the 68-degree heating maximum ordinance is still in effect, and that anyone found to be using electrically dependent heating at temperatures in excess of 68 degrees will be fined. Fines increase steeply with repeated offenses. Exemptions for reasons of medical necessity may be obtained at the Gainesville City Hall or the Alachua County Commission offices. The Feed the Hungry Coalition of the Salvation Army, United Way, and local area churches will be holding a Thanksgiving dinner tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Alachua County Fairgrounds and at Florida Field on the university campus. All who are in need and hungry this holiday are invited to attend. Donations of food, clothing, blankets, or cash will be gladly accepted. In Tallahassee, Governor Jeb Bush released a statement today authorizing counties to institute public executions of condemned felons at the discretion of local county commissions. He is quoted as saying, "The wave of violence and lawlessness that has afflicted our great state since the impact must be stopped. Let all who are considering preying upon their fellow man take heed if they want to keep their neck out of a noose. The people of Florida will not tolerate being victimized any longer. A motion to institute the practice here in Alachua County is expected at the County Commission meeting on Monday, December 2nd. Several groups in favor of and against public executions are expected to be in force at the meeting. Classic 88 will be providing live coverage. On the national scene, President George Bush signed the dollar revaluation bill into law this morning in a ceremony in the new presidential office in Denver. Starting Monday, December 2nd, all U.S. paper currency issued before August 1st must be surrendered at any bank or other qualified institution. In exchange, new U.S. dollars will be issued at an exchange rate of 10 to 1 and backed by the full faith and credit of the U.S. government." Okay. This is being done in order to allow the U.S. banking system to become functional again. All right. I'll get the blood off my tongue later. This is being done in order to allow the U.S. banking system to become functional again, which will allow U.S. banks to reopen on Monday, January 6th, after the exchange period ends on Friday, January 3rd. Any old U.S. currency still in circulation after January 3rd of next year will become null and void. John let out a long sigh. Well, we knew it was going to happen. That doesn't make it any easier when the axe finally falls. You can bet that every international holder of U.S. currency or U.S. debt is having a calf just now. Breach presentation. Of course, anyone still holding U.S. dollars overseas by now must have been in a coma. This is probably going to start a wave of repercussions that will reflect back and forth for the next 10 years. Local prices are going to be all over the map for a while, I'd bet. Before the impact, we were selling eggs for $1.50 a dozen. Now we'll have to sell them for 15 cents. Last I looked at the Archer Market, Mrs. Lansley was selling her eggs for $4 a dozen and said she'd probably be raising prices again soon. I wonder how she'll price them come January. Robert took a deep sip of the coffee that Brittany had just brought him. Well, they had to do something. It's not the first time the government clipped a zero off the dollar to try to bail out the national banking system. I haven't had a Social Security check come since impact. There's got to be... Brittany. Oh, figure it out later. Oh, Robert's talking. Jeez, okay. Brittany, I'm like, nah, she can't be getting Social Security. All right, spare me. I'm reading it. I'm not listening to it. I haven't had a Social Security check come since impact. There's got to be millions across the country like me. The ones that are still alive, that is. I expect quite a lot of us old folks won't make it through the winter. The more desperate the situation becomes, the more desperate the government's going to act. And then back to the news. Rioting in the major cities of Brazil is still widespread after last week's military coup. In spite of repeated attempts to restore order by the Brazilian army, rioters still control major parts of Brasilia, Sao Paulo, and Rio de Janeiro, with the entire nation being in a state of martial law. Disorder has now crossed the border into Uruguay, with fighting breaking out in the capital of Montevideo. In a statement today by Defense Secretary Rumsfeld, it was announced that the last of the U.S. troops and supplies in Saudi Arabia have been removed from the increasingly fundamentalist Islamic oil-rich nation. U.S. bases in Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman are being expanded to take over the roles played by the U.S. former Saudi bases. Heather stuck her head through the door and said, "Soup's ready, everyone come to the table." John reached out and turned the radio off with a click. Well, at least that's something to look forward to.